Hi, I'm Nate. I'm your masculinity and mindset coach. Today I'm going to be talking about disrespect, how to spot it, and how to respond as an empowered man. See, many of us who are raised by our mothers had developed or assumed that women would always treat us with a perfect love. And in reality, that's quite unreasonable. Now, the only person who's going to love you like your mother is your mother. When it comes to romantic relationships, there is a way that a harmonious and respectful dynamic is created when there is a healthy order that is created through the leadership and authority of the masculine. Often a woman will test a man through behaviors that are potentially disrespectful to see if that man will stand for himself, to see if that man has self-esteem. And she'll often do so if she already has an inkling or an idea that this man does not respect himself, does not have a high level of esteem. And so she will test that to validate it and to see whether it's worth her while to invest more energy into that relationship. The other circumstance where this happens is in a longer term relationship where over time a man fails a series of tests and the woman increasingly becomes disrespectful, even out of disdain, because she's lost respect for the man. And so her expressions, her behaviors reflect this lack of respect. Now, if you're a man and like me at one stage in my developmental journey, you're not truly aware of what's respectful and what's disrespectful, I want to give you some pointers now. What is disrespectful is anything that lowers your status. One example might be a preferential treatment of other men to you in public settings, around friends or around strangers. It could be her entertaining the advances of other men in front of you. It could be her being physically intimate with another man whilst ignoring you, or her unwillingness to be physically intimate with you, but then be physically intimate with other men. And this can also, it doesn't have to be just, romantic kissing or anything like that. Obviously, that would be an extreme example. It could just be her physical contact. It could be her dancing with other men and not you. It could be her giving more of energy and time and attention through conversation to other men than you. These are all signs that she's more invested in others than in you, and it's a sign of disrespect. Because in a social setting, there's a hierarchy, and one of the reflections of higher status amongst men in social settings is the intention that that man gets from women. So if the woman's giving, especially your woman, if she's giving more of attention to other men, there's a red flag there that maybe she's not respecting you as much, or that she's wanting to monkey branch across to another man. The reality is, if a woman is attractive, she will be getting pursued by other men, regardless of whether or not she's in a relationship. However, the way that she handles that is very important. See, an attractive woman very quickly learns how to create boundaries, if she has boundaries, that can shut down a man's advances. She just doesn't open herself as much to that man. She learns to decline a man's advances. So certainly a mature woman is well within the capacity to show her respect by declining another man's advance and honoring yours and honoring your connection and your intimacy. Obviously, there's different relationship dynamics. I'm talking about a more traditional way of relating. I believe that loyalty and honesty and transparency and demonstrations of behaviors that are honoring are fundamental to a healthy relationship. So other examples of disrespect from the feminine could be she doesn't reply to your messages. Now, this is when you're in relationship. This is not when you're in the early courting phase. So if she's slow to respond to your messages, if she says, oh, I was busy, I forgot, these sort of behaviors over time, they are not demonstrative of a woman who respects you in having a willingness to respond to you. Another one would be she is consistently late in times that you have organized to meet, for instance, or going out on a date or something like that. When she's not respectful of your time, she's not respectful of you. And so a litmus test here can be, is she able to turn up for a job interview on time, or to turn up to work on time, or to make a train or plane on time? And typically the answer very much is yes. To be a functional member of society, there are times when you just need to be on time. And if your time is not being respected and you're left, for instance, just to sit and wait, it's indicative of her not moving with your authority. Which brings me to the next point of disrespect. If a woman is combative, if a woman diminishes your authority, if she goes against your authority, these are all signs of disrespect. And diminishing your authority is a way that she communicates that she doesn't respect your leadership. It's also indicative that she doesn't hold you in high esteem, where she's willing to submit to your authority. So if you find a woman that's combative, that is disrespecting your authority, that is not respecting your boundaries that have been clearly expressed and stated, then likely you're enabling it and you're not in your dominant authoritative leadership. With respect to honoring authority, your boundaries, your leadership has to be honored. Your requests need to be honored. When your leadership, your authority is challenged, it's a sign of mutiny, a sign of disrespect. So it's very important as a leader to have consequence to your actions, to have consequence to your requests. If a woman is not going to honor you, then she's not inside your frame. She's not following you. She's not being led by you. So just as a boss might consider, if an employee was consistently dismissive of your authority, of your leadership, if she wasn't honoring your requests, why would you continue to keep that person employed? Now, obviously, I'm talking about employment, and it's different in some contexts, obviously, to a relationship. The main emphasis I'm trying to make here is whether or not her behavior is aligned in a respectful way with honoring your leadership, with honoring your status. And this becomes in very clear contrast when you meet a woman who's genuinely into you, who loves your leadership, who leans into you, who wants to be around you, who respects you. When you feel the difference, and this typically happens, mind you, once you've developed yourself into a framed man. Once you have authority, women tend to conform to that authority because they can feel the strength of your leadership. It's like this natural order that begins to take place. Once a man has his own internal authority, his own boundaries, the world conforms to that. So I've given you the solution. If you're experiencing disrespect, the first thing you need to do is to respect yourself. You need to bring order to your life. You need to develop boundaries that you honor and keep with yourself. You need to show up in behaviors that are consistent and right aligned to raising your esteem and raising your self-respect. And in doing so, in holding that standard for yourself, you will start to invite that from other people, both men and women. And you also have a greater radar for picking up those behaviors immediately when they begin to show up in an external reflection. Another very important point, which I touched on, is that men raised by mothers often will not be strong in their discipline and their disciplinary actions as compared to men that have been raised with strong fathers. So if a man has been primarily raised by his mother, he'll have a softer, loving approach compared to a man who's been raised with the discipline of a father. The latter, through the modeling behaviors of the father in a clean, healthy display of discipline, he will be able to emulate that and bring those disciplinary behaviors into his own life, both for himself personally and in the way that he relates to others. A man that hasn't had that behavior modeled to him will typically just simply not know how to bring order to chaos through discipline. And I know also in my case, I didn't have a cutting energy towards the feminine where I did with the masculine. That's because in the way that I was raised by my mother, with all of her love and care, and really I stayed in my boyishness long into my 20s until finally I had to go through a maturing process, and I went through a rite of passage and an initiation. I wasn't willing to bite the hand that feeds me. If I'm receiving all this love and care from a mother, then, and I haven't been initiated into a path of masculinity by my father, and if the mother holds in some ways a position of being the matriarch of the family, then this creates a challenging quandary for a young man in how to then be a constructive and strong leader when they've been conforming to a feminine frame of authority. They need to first remedy that. They need to break out of the feminine frame of authority. They need to develop their masculine frame, and they need to learn how to develop their masculine leadership and authority. They need to develop an internal authority, which then is reflected in that man's experience with others. So just to recap, if you find yourself in a position where your authority is being challenged, more than likely you need to work on your own inner authority first. If you find yourself in a place where you're being disrespected, more than likely you need to develop your own sense of self-respect through disciplined self-care behaviors. You need to learn how to establish boundaries and enforce them, both with yourself and others. Essentially, you need to develop your masculine frame. And if you're with a woman who's disrespecting you, you may need to make a decision whether or not you will tolerate that any longer. And you need to start enforcing what boundaries are reinforcing of your status, your authority, and your identity. And if the woman that you're with is non-conforming to that authority and leadership, then you need to establish a boundary and ultimately exit the relationship and find a woman that is now willing to be complementary to your authority and leadership. Because in the long run, you'll have a much healthier dynamic. The reason for that is if a woman is disrespecting you and you're tolerating it, your standing in the community will diminish, your status will diminish, your self-confidence will diminish, and you'll find yourself on a slippery slope to depression. So this is why this is so important for you to come into your authority, to be the dominant creator of your reality, lead your life in a respectful way for yourself, and invite others to treat you in the same way. I hope this has been helpful. If it has, please subscribe to my channel, like this video and share it with others. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.